What is up, everybody? This is The Sticks. This is your weekly Kentucky fighting game and Smash Bros. Talk show featuring myself, Drop0ut, alongside this week with Galahad and Xisin. So we got the new generation and the old generation, and we're bringing it in. Razor is supposed to host us along with us, but his internet is notoriously terrible. And we're an outrage that JDB didn't make PR. Deep State Games already kicking us in on the comments. So, guys, this is the first episode. We got some opportunity here to kind of introduce ourselves and also talk about what's going on in the state to start things off. So what's going on, guys?
Want to start, Xisin?
Yeah, I can start. So, state for Smash, state for fighting games. Like, what are you looking at here?
I'll just go wherever you want to go, man. Like where your brain takes you first.
So the first thing that I think that people should be paying attention to right now is Bourbon State Fighters coming up. I'm going to go ahead and give a pitch for Jeremy, and that is, I believe, the third week of August. Is that where we're at with that? Yeah. And all kinds of nice fighting games there. That was actually at Cardinal Gaming in Louisville. So go ahead and check that out. It's probably the biggest fighting games tournament in the state right now. Yep, and it bounces between Louisville and Lexington. It's currently in Louisville. Please go check that out. And also, pinning on top of that, check out my tournament that will go on later that night. If you're feeling that Tekken, there will be another Tekken tournament at 9:30 p.m. at the Hideaway Saloon, and people have been requesting it, so we're doing a after tournament, and maybe have some drinks and have some fun, kick back, relax at the Hideaway.
So Bourbon State Fighters Edition 15 will have Dragon Ball FighterZ, Guilty Gear Strive, King of Fighters 15, DNF Duel, Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Street Fighter 5, Tekken 7, and Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. So when is Marvel? It is at the end of the tournament here. So that's Bourbon State. And so, guys, we're starting to see a little bit of activity start back up in the state as well. And a couple of fighting game tournaments happened over the most recent week. Hideaway, Cornerstone both had some tournaments. We'll go first over and check out. We got a top 8 for Hideaway DNF. And our boy Xisin, the co-host here, coming in second. So kind of walk us through this tournament. You were obviously there, so it's at Hideaway. So
yeah. So these Hideaway tournaments, we host them every week. Fighting game and Smash, of course, but this one was DNF, and what we did was we just posted up, and we did some random seeding for pools, and then we played for seeds after that. I want to give a shout out to Just in particular, the third place there, because the way the pools were randomly seeding, this is why random seeding is bad, so don't do random seeding, kids, is that Just got seeded into a death pool, just from random sake. He got the top 4 in the tournament, top 5 actually. Everyone in the top 5 there, except for Just, was in the same pool. I mean, there's all 5 of them. That was pool 1. And he got last place in his pool and ended up pulling out 3rd place in the bracket. He had a very, very, very terrible seed. Had to play through everyone, and ultimately only lost the 1st and 2nd place in the tournament, except for a game to excel in pools. But yeah, we seeded with pools, 2 groups of pools, and then we ran a double elimination bracket. There's the results. Hayes is crazy as always. If anyone's ever played against this guy, he plays Guilty Gear, plays an amazing soul bad guy. And me, one brain selling Crusader got me 2nd place. So just a wall and making people mad about that wall. But it was a fun time, and we'll do another one. We're doing another one in the future. So the schedule just came out.
So who did Hayes play in this tournament?
Hayes played. The first thing that Hayes played was Berserker, and I ended up taking him to last game on it, and then he went to his main and demolished me. His main is Dragon Knight, and I was having Soul Bad Guy flashbacks, like while he was just mercilessly pounding me in the corner, I just couldn't get out. So it was not a fun time, but it was a fun time. But to be in the corner with that kind of pressure, it's not fun, especially with that setup where it's like you can Dragon Punch, but the jump's safe is what he was telling me, no matter what. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, so how do I get out? As you got a guard break, or you got to call 50-50. Otherwise, he starts to loop over again, and he does that twice, and you're dead, and that's DNF in a nutshell. So yeah, it was a great time. Come out again. We had about, I think it was 12 to 15 players. It was pretty good for a first day tournament.
Yeah, I think DNF's really starting to kind of show up more, especially when now that the tournament season's coming back. DNF is, I think, going to be one of the bigger games. So we got another DNF tournament. This one was at Cornerstone, and looks like Stealth 008 took this one. Crusaders, so not too much variety in this top 8, but there's not too many characters in the game, so
Yeah.
good little top 8 over here as well. 2 Crusaders and Ghostblade also making an appearance, and the Lone Striker back in 7th place, Afrobane. So a lot of talented players there as well. And speaking of Hideaway and fighting games, we have the schedule here for the Hideaway Saloon, and if you want to talk us through this one, Xisin.
Yeah, that just came out today, and we're focusing on Tekken. This is actually a new announcement that we're doing for Tekken. You heard it here first. We are officially doing bi-weeklies for Tekken now because it has such a great response. So we're doing bi-weeklies for Tekken and Smash. Those are going to be our 2 main games going forward. And of course, we have our old school fighting games. You can see it's a Dreamcast Power Stone focused tournament. That's the one that I'm not hosting. It's another guy to host the old school stuff. And Guilty Gear at the end of the month, as well as Mortal Kombat. And the Mortal Kombat tournaments, actually, they really pull the casuals from the bar. And so if you want to meet some new people and have some fun, that's a good one to go to. Just make sure you check out any of those tournaments. Of course, August 13th for DNF again. And like I said, we're always there. We're always getting set up at 9 p.m. on Fridays or Saturdays. And that's, come by, have a drink. $1 Jello shots. It's a pretty good deal.
So also, Galahad works with the Moorhead FGC. Mostly he is the Moorhead FGC originally. So you guys kind of talked some stuff over today, and are you guys getting ready to start your season back up?
So yeah, move-in, I think, for Moorhead is around mid-August. So not the first week that they move back, but the week after is when we're going to start back up. And we're going to be running on Tuesdays. We're going to have Strive and Ultimate, and then a different game every week for the 3rd game. Okay. And on Fridays, we're going to have Melee and Project Plus and PM Remix alternating back and forth.
Awesome. So great to see that scene starting back up as well. Other scenes will be starting back up as well. We reached out to the EKU crowd. They're going to be starting back up pretty soon as well. And that also kind of leads us into the next part of our reviews. We got a few Smash tournaments to go over, and the big one recently is the Arcadian. And
I definitely want to talk about this.
There's some sleepers here.
I definitely want to talk about this.
So Fair Play, of course, takes it. A lot of people have some questions. Very, very talented player. At the very least, we're looking at somebody who's on the edge of honorable mention, or maybe in the honorable mention area. And then number 2 in the tournament is a player by the name of Joseph Joestar. You may also know him by the name of JDB. He was a longtime number 1 player in the state of Kentucky, and he's still a very talented player. Inactivity is probably the majority of why they were able to compete in this Arcadian, but as you can see, the rest of the top 8, a lot of good up-and-coming players as well. And so, Xisin, you've got some stuff to say here as well.
All right, so I want to cover Fair Play. And I want to give you the story of Fair Play here, because the reason Fair Play qualified for the Arcadian because I messed up. And so we are the way we collect data in the power ranking is it's like a rolling data collection. So we collect it by the tournament. And then we record play results. We record play results by electing tracks, and what I mean by electing tracks is should we track? I'll just use me for example. Should we track Xisin this season? And it's a no, right? Should we track Violet this season? Usually it's a yes. And so we track anywhere from 20 to 25, and every person we add onto that is an exponential add-on. So it really adds on to the piles of work. I didn't notice Fair Play's tournament placing and results until about 95% completion, and by that time, it's like we were on a deadline. So, and fair play probably was PR. It was probably HM. I actually voted for fair play to be an HM, and I'm the only person that voted for fair play to be an HM. So you'll know who. If you look at the HMs, you'll see which panelist I am. That reveals me. But it's panelist one. I'm always panelist one.
He doxed himself.
And so now that you know that, and but yeah, fair play should have been an HM. I just needed to get the data out on them. But by the time we realized that fair play's tearing it up, it was too late. If I had another day or two, I would have added his data, but it's too much work to go back and redo everything for one person, and that's what happened there. So fair play, we have taken notice of you, and this will probably be the last Arcadian you will enjoy if you keep it up.
That's the highest compliment we can give you. So there you go. Fair play, number 1 in a 69 entrant tournament Arcadian, meaning that it excludes honorable mentions and the PR from the tournament. That doesn't mean that it was a low talent level. Basically, it's just a chance for the people outside of the top 10, 13 players to get an opportunity to show what they've got. So we'll go on through the rest of some Smash results. We got DGT, and of course, right at the top of the list, Cavalry's very own Jin coming in, 5 wins, 0 losses. But some of the other up-and-coming players showing up, as well as some familiar faces. Mr. Eric rounding out the top 8. Krispy Kreme, of course. Violet, Wilds, the child prodigy of the state, as well. So, I think is he still soloing Kazuya Mishima? So, Wilds and Pfeffel. Yeah. So mostly every name here is a recognizable name to people who are familiar with Kentucky Smash.
That Ufgo performance, though, look at that.
Yeah, only losing to Jin, 5-2.
Grabbing a few PR wins, more than a few. Yeah.
So a lot to.
Yeah.
A little bit of future there.
It is, and of course, as you said, Eric. Honestly,
he's always
an old
there.
Person. It gets hard. It gets hard, people, and it's just these older folk. We can still hold on. It's we actually have time to play. And Eric is on that hard path right now, trying to get back into it.
So moving on, of course, Cardinal, their weekly. Here's the top 8 for them. Kane coming out on top. Kane, another. Perennial player here in the state of Kentucky. Worry, another great player. Krispy Kreme over there as well. Mr. Eric in 4th in this one. So Louisville crowd kind of making the rounds and getting in some different tournaments along with some of the other players from the western and central side of the state as well. So not a whole lot going on here other than just the fact that it's some familiar faces. BDC in 5th place there as well. Back on Shulk according to this graphic. So looks like maybe he's got off of Aegis and gone back to an old tried and true main.
Yep, Eric there. One thing I do want to try to get more attention to this tournament series again. Cook Deluxe is running it now, and people should still make it out to that tournament. It's still the Cardinal Weekly. Really, just check it out. I think they're having a hard time pulling in PR players, but
yeah.
Just head to it. I think it's Sunday now. Isn't it Sunday?
Yeah, it's Sundays.
Yeah, the last one was on the 24th, so that was a Sunday. Yeah.
Yep.
So moving on, we do have Lunar Lounge as well.
Which is the new Wednesday tournament, right?
Yeah, new Wednesday tournament. And, of course, number 3 in the state, Butter, is going to take that one over Paffa Clutcher. Paffa Clutcher kind of... I like to call him the sleeper pick in a lot of tournaments because you never know who he's going to take wins on. He'll show up, and he's never seated extraordinarily high, but he's never completely overlooked, and they always get some great wins. And any Ness is going to frustrate a lot of players because there's so many strange matchups there. Of course, Pneumatic in 3rd. Fair Play, who won the Arcadian, coming in 4th, only losing to Paffa and Tux Kick. So Tux with
PR players.
Yeah, Tux, former PR player, and still always sniffing around the PR as well. And yet another tournament that Eric found himself at. Looks like he was at 3 different tournaments this past week and a half. So
Honestly, it's good to see Eric traveling again.
yeah, trying to make the rounds and getting in, and he's even made a few posts about remembering the frustration of competitive play. So good, great to see the old man back at it again.
Yeah, he said he's actually making a serious run at it again. Might be his last one, but we'll see.
So that's going to bring us over to a little bit of an announcement. So this is not an announcement for anybody familiar with Kentucky Smash. This is your normal top 10 plus one player. And if you're wondering why it's numbered the way it is, that's because we are going to be introducing something new called the Sticks Smash Ultimate Championship, and we're also going to be hopefully doing this for some fighting games as well. Tekken, we were originally thinking about Strive, but the scene's kind of moving in a different direction. So, but anyway, going forward with Smash, you can see that at the very top of this list, which is player for player, the PR minus Thedium, only because they have moved out of the state again, and then we just simply moved up who was the next ranked person based on the PR panel's actual list and information. But the reason the number one spot has two number ones, Jen and Roger, is because this is not going to be the standard power rankings based on tournament play. This is going to be a contender series similar to what you would see in organized sports like boxing or MMA, where this is just our initial ranking. Every player in the state who wants to take place in a match, these matches will take place outside of bracket, and they'll go up and down these rankings based on wins or losses there. And the reason number one is shared between two players, Jen and Roger, they are the consensus number one and number two in the state, and they have been pretty consistently since coming back from the pandemic, is because they will face off in a first to five at Queen City Smash or Queen City Showdown's one night stand for the first ever Smash Ultimate Championship from the Sticks. So they're going to have an out of bracket first to five matchup at one night stand to declare the first champion. So I think that's a pretty cool thing. Both players have agreed to it. I think the other big thing about these matchups that kind of makes it interesting is that, unlike in a tournament, these players will know their opponent ahead of time. So they're going to know a week ahead of time who they're playing against, and they can game plan, they can prepare. Normal matchups will all be first to three, so a best of five, and championship matchups will all be a first to five. So it's a different format. You don't have to worry about where you came from in bracket and where you're going in bracket. These are all outside of it, and they won't affect your normal PR performance because it's not in bracket. So what the PR panel is doing based on tournament play, that will not affect this after this initial ranking. So what do you guys think of this announcement and this new implementation of another sort of ranking system in the state that's separate from your traditional tournament performance ranking?
I'm pretty excited for it. It's a pretty good idea, honestly. I think it's nice to see that there's like kind of a ladder system to it, and you can constantly be moving up and down like as the season goes on.
So the general idea as well is, because Jen and Roger will be having a match for the inaugural championship, Butter and Volt will have reached out to both of them, and hopefully we can get the stars to align. They'll have a match as well, and the winner of their match will go on to face the winner of the Jen and Roger match at the next event, which will probably be the next Bourbon tournament that has a big Smash tournament, and that'll be the next championship match. And then Roger and, or not Roger, but the losers of those two matches will face each other in a matchup at that tournament to see who is the number one contender going forward. But 4 and 5, Feffel and Worry, we're going to reach out to them, try to get them to match up. Wilds, Pneumatic, Kane, Mitch, Krispy Kreme, and of course those other players who are in that range. Fair Play, we talked about Fair Play. Of course, Tux is there, Eric is there, Joseph Joestar or JDB. They're all players who are in that range of talent that they're going to get matchups against these top 10 players in the contendership for a chance to move up as well. And, you know, depending on wins and losses, this will change a lot outside of the top 3 or 4, which will probably stay the same for the most part, aside from just changing amongst each other until somebody else works their way up into playing for that championship opportunity.
Pretty cool. It's a pretty cool concept. I do like the almost like a promotion appeal to it.
Yeah,
It also built some hype up for maybe some rivalries. And then it's a nice little head-to-head ranking system that adds to what we currently have. So it's pretty cool. I'll enjoy watching it.
So I think that's going to be kind of it for the majority of the show. What we are going to do, though, is we're going to step away, take a short break. When we come back, we're going to interview a Kentucky FGC legend, Staticalpha. So when we come back, we'll have Staticalpha on the show, and we'll wrap things up after that. So everybody stick around. We'll be back with Staticalpha here in just a few minutes. So what's up, guys? We're back with Staticalpha, Kentucky's very own, the proprietor of the only real active social media group for the Kentucky fighting game community right now, the Kentucky Fighting Game Collective. Thanks for joining the show, man. It's our first episode, so we had to kind of get some legends on. And so what's going on in the world for you, man?
Man, life is good. I guess I can't complain. I recently just bought a house, so we're living that up, and we've got our dog and our fenced-in yard and all that crap, so doing great. Hoping to get some stuff set up for games here soon at the place, so we can kind of kick off like the more community aspect of like having a big place to like hang out and play games here in the city again.
Awesome, man. Great to see like that everybody's trying to keep that community going. But you've kind of been around the Kentucky fighting game community for a long time. Where did you really kind of kick it off? What got you started in it?
So the whole thing, like, because Kentucky, I think it's called like the Kentucky Fighting Game Collective. It used to be called the Kentucky Gaming Alliance, and how it started actually was me and one of my friends here in town. He goes by BGJ. His name's John Yoakum. We would sit at the apartment. I lived off of Westport Road here in town, playing Marvel for hours at a time, like 6-7 hour sets, just Iron Man in it. And I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool if like other people wanted to play Marvel with us or whatever? And I took a huge risk. I made a little thing and was like, hey, I'm having people over to play fighting games. And I scheduled it to where it was like every Sunday, and it was like, there was no entry fee. It was just an apartment. So like, come and play games. We had multiple setups, and my friends would bring stuff over or whatever. And we'd always order food and just kind of hang out. And then one day it got to one Sunday where it was so packed that you couldn't sit anywhere or even stand anywhere. And there were people outside, and people knew that it was like the thing to do. So they would come to the apartment to even just watch tournaments. Like, it became like this space where everybody would just kind of hang out and, just talk smack and watch the games and play whatever was available. And we ran random game tournaments and stuff because I have a huge retro collection here at the house. So we would do that. And then before I knew it, like, it was so large that we needed a different place to play. So we went and found like a little small venue. It was like a little card shop. This is before like before Through the Decades. We used to play at this little place called Not Something to Do. What was the name of that card shop? Parallel Worlds Gaming. It was like off in some little like shopping center. We played there, and they would play Yu-Gi-Oh and Smash, and like we were kind of like the small guys in the corner. And then we got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then Through the Decades happened, so we were playing there. And then as a group, we like kind of formed a competitive team, so we were traveling together all the time, which was super cool. So between all that and like having a team and being able to like fund everybody to go do stuff, it turned into a situation where we could make this page where, hey, you can watch the team like play games and do that kind of thing. And then it got so big that it became what you see on the group now.
So that's pretty awesome, man. So nowadays, now that we've gone through the COVID era, excuse me, and
Right.
everything is coming back around. So we're trying to regrow the scene a little bit. What games are you starting to see a lot of big interest in? I know we've talked a little bit. Tekken has kind of been the perennial game that's stuck around in Kentucky for the longest, it seems like.
Yeah, I think as far as Louisville goes, and like I can't speak for outside of Louisville. Maybe I can speak for Lexington a hair, just because like I know a lot of the guys there and I see what they do all the time. And they're only an hour from me. But on top of that, like Tekken's probably, if you're talking about like main FGC entries, like Smash is never going anywhere. Smash is always going to be the thing. It's always going to be there. There's always going to be people to play. Tekken, I think, has been like the Kentucky game that's really held on like through all of it. Dragon Ball did really well here for a while, and then COVID hit. And like, since we're talking about COVID era stuff, I was really, really feeling like Samurai Showdown. Like, I was really in it. And like, we still play it from time to time, me and Matt. And like COVID hit that game really hard. And it's I almost like feel bad for some of the other titles that happened. Like Granblue, I feel like Granblue got COVID
Yeah, for
You
real.
know? Like
Straight
it showed
up.
up and it was like, oh, you're sick and you hooked to a respirator and you may die, which is awful, but it happened. So like you're looking at Grand Blue got hit by the virus, like first and foremost right out of the gate. The last entry for Undernight Inbirth, that what was it called? Uniclear.
Yeah, Uniclear.
Uniclear got blasted by it too. And then you're looking at these new titles, like we're kind of lucky that like rollback netcode has become this like main thing that like people just expect you to have, because that's like a method that at least you can still play. And like Strive kind of was like, I guess like the forefront of all of that, you know, where it's like, hey, you've got a main entry game with brilliant graphics. Like no one's going to talk bad about the way Strive looks.
No.
That game is beautiful. So with it looking the way that it does and being the first of like the true next gen fighters, sorry KOF 15, I don't mean to be mean, but you know, it's like that title having rollback net play, that like it's a ball game changer. And with Street Fighter 6 around the way, man, I don't know. Like I think we're in a weird space, like as a whole, like not just Kentucky, but like the world. But I do think that what's missing from the community right now is a centralized title. Like we need something that like everybody can kind of fixate on, you know? And with Tekken being that game for a while, like I notice a lot of Tekken players don't play other games. At least that's in my experience.
KOF a little bit.
Yeah, but like if it's complex enough, I think they'll dive into it. But in most cases, I feel like a lot of 2D players will play 3D games, but not a lot of 3D players will play as many 2D games, which I think is kind of strange. But it's just from what I've watched, you know, like Tekken players don't tend to play Marvel or Street Fighter because it's not their bag. But like Street Fighter players, usually you main Street Fighter and then you play another game. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like if you look at like Street Fighter 4, like people would go to tournaments to specifically play Street Fighter 4, but it was like, oh, I play Street Fighter, but I also play Blaze Blue, or I also play Marvel, or I also play Smash. You know, so like the other games around it, the attendance just naturally goes up because you've got players that are like, I mean, they'll enter tournaments just because they want something to do, you know, like they're in the area and they're like, well, I got to wait until Saturday to play, you know, my pool. So I'm just going to enter this other game. And then it causes the attendance to rise up. So I'm hoping that even though like now, like we don't have like a centralized title, we have a lot of people that are spread out in small numbers playing a multitude of games. And I think that's like, it's a gift and a curse because yeah, you have online, but at the core of it all, like when you throw an event and you've got 5 games on your roster, you don't have as many players because each of them are playing those separate games respectively instead of like a communal thing and then playing a side game, you know?
Absolutely. And I thought that Strive was going to be that game,
you know,
for a
me
while.
Too.
But you know, a lot of people weren't happy with the patch. A lot of people aren't happy with the meta right now with that game.
Yeah.
So it shows you just straight up how, you know, a couple of bad decisions can absolutely take a game out of the running.
Oof.
That it was.
You're
I
right.
mean, they broke the record at Combo Breaker. They had the most entries at Combo Breaker ever of any of their tournaments.
And that's an anime game. Like like if you think about that, that's actually insane.
Yes.
You know, that's not a Capcom game. That's not a Namco game. That is an ArcSys game. And those games typically have subsystems that make people not interested.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about breaking a record for tournament entries for a game, like that's phenomenal. You know, that's a huge thing.
Yeah, Dragon Ball didn't even do that. And,
right.
and that was the biggest explosion prior to Strive.
Like DBFZ is the game. It's the Dragon Ball game that every Dragon Ball fan on the earth for 3 decades has asked to play.
Yes.
They've wanted that. Like all the Budokais and the Tenkaichi and all that. I get it. It's cool. Whatever. But like DBFZ, like that's what Hyperdimension on Super Nintendo in Japan wanted to be, and it couldn't do it. You know what I mean? Like the Dragon Ball required PlayStation 4 style hardware, like for us to get that game ever. And the fact that it happened is a beautiful thing. So like they had it, they were playing it, it's great. Strive is out. Strive is obviously crushing, like it crushed the records that any of the other games have put out for like what I would consider like, I call Combo Breaker the new Evo. And like y'all can at me, do what you need to do, but I'm saying it.
Funny about the guy running that event.
Right, you know? Right? Like, come on. Like I feel like if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck. And if we're talking about like world championships, like Rick Thayer, shout outs to the Hado. Because Rick Thayer the god. Like, don't say anything bad about that guy. That guy's crushing it.
And you're going to start seeing those two events start to resemble each other even more as time,
yeah.
because there's no way they're not going to.
It can't happen. Like, I think the thing that separates Combo Breaker for me, as far as like, you know, going to Evo is cool. Like, I like it and I love watching it. But like, Combo Breaker as a player is a much more fun tournament to be at, because like the whole tournament is centered around the idea that you can play all day, all the time. You can play as many casuals as you want with whoever you want, however many hours. Like, you don't have to go to your room. You can sit in that venue and play games until the sun goes up and down for 3 days straight,
and never enter a bracket, even if you don't even want to enter a bracket.
You can play more matches without even having to enter a tournament and learn. Like, if you're looking to get better at a game, do that. Like, be there. You know, half of the level up games that happen at tournaments are in the hotel rooms. It's not in the brackets. You know.
Yeah.
So like, that's something cool too. And if Evo can kind of start to resemble the idea that people can go and play, not just watch, that's a huge thing. And I feel like Rick is like really, really into the idea of that. So maybe we'll see something where there's more stations and more sponsorships and maybe more invested in the idea of people going to play versus just watching. And that obviously will raise the count of who's watching because more people are interested. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And they did kind of announce that they're going to have the biggest casual area that Evo's ever had.
Of course, like the year Rick is in charge.
Exactly. The community guy is bringing that aspect into it. So
yes, sir.
I've heard this quote, and some people will argue, especially we're old timers. You know, I'm old, you're old, Xisin's old. We've all been around. We got one young guy on the crew right now, Galahad, but James Chen. You know, if you know who that guy is, anybody in the FGC should know that name. He said himself that he doesn't think that we've lived through the golden age of fighting games. He thinks we're starting the golden age of fighting games right now, and that's where we're going. So I really feel that, man. Like I'm starting to feel that.
It's like, like obviously with COVID being a thing, nobody's been able to really go to all of the different places they would normally go through a fighting game tournament season. With it, I don't want to say it's coming to a close, but like people are less afraid of going outside and losing their lives, which is kind of like the idea that can make things better for us as a scene. I feel like with as many titles that are on the horizon, and we have like what I would consider to be the biggest one from Capcom that we've had in a while, I think Street Fighter 6 in terms of hype, presentation, how they're handling the marketing of the game, the fact that they're letting the communities like play the game like at different events and stuff, I feel like it kind of reminds me of like, and like to compare this to what I consider to be one of the most successful games, it reminds me of Tekken 7 a whole lot.
Yeah.
T7, like I remember going to brackets, like even being at Combo Breaker, and like they had that game running on empty husk computer shells for people that connected to monitors, where you had to go and like you could see the Steam launcher when you walked up, and then you would have to configure your stick and start playing the game. And they would hold tournaments for this game that people didn't even own and wouldn't own for like 2 years. And over the course of the 2 years that they're like walking to these tournaments, and Markman's there, and Harada's walking around and hanging out with everybody and like taking notes of what they see people abusing and this, that, and whatever. By the time the game comes out, the game is godlike. And I'm like, well, if Street Fighter 6 is kind of doing the same idea, where they're reaching out to the community and being like, hey, do you like what you see? What do you think of the art style? What do you think of the graphic engine? And like, they're also starting the game out with a bit more like of the original, like it's like new, but there's enough of what you've experienced already to spark your interest in the game. Whereas like Street Fighter 5 happened and you're like, well, they've got this new mechanic, it's called Crush. That seems interesting. But like you realized real quick, it's not interesting. It causes the game to be really dry because people are banging on heavies in neutral instead of actually playing neutral. And then you see Street Fighter 6 and it's like the first thing they show you. It's like, this is gone. Now you can poke. Now there's like the footsie game of being in and out. Fireballs matter. Everybody has access to everything. Like one of the things that kind of misbalanced 5 was like you had the V-trigger option, right? And if your character didn't have a V-trigger, like a good one, then that character by default is just naturally trash, which isn't right. So it makes you look at other characters where you're like, hey, that character isn't viable. I'm not even going to touch him. I'm not going to look at him. It's worthless. It's a waste of time. But in this, they kind of went the Alpha 2 approach where everybody has everything. You have a drive meter. Everybody gets access to EX moves. If you exhaust yourself, that's on you. But every character they fall victim to that system. So like, you can kind of express yourself a little better when you have all of the tools with every character that you decide to select instead of just the one. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I feel like they went out of their way to make sure and have something in there for every generation of Street Fighter fan. They showed a parry. That's obviously every third strike head in the world is going to be like, I know that. And then they showed something that looked an awful lot like a focus attack.
Focus attack, yeah, dude.
And then the custom looked like a custom combo to me. So so there's your alpha crowd and the CVS2 players because us A Groove guys because I'm an A Groove player for life.
Hey, A Groove can represent.
All day.
Dude, that's real.
They gave us a little bit of everything, and they still kind of kept some stuff from 5 because 5 has a lot of fans. It has a lot of haters, but it still has a lot of fans.
Right. I think there's like obviously some of the new characters or whatever come like Luke being the main character. That's like a carryover from the new game, and I know a lot of people have been playing him. I don't know if it's because he's so good or whatever. Because I don't really mess with 5 that much. I watch it, but I don't really play it. But from what I can see, Luke is pretty damn good. So I can imagine him being like a popular character going into the new one.
Yeah.
But also like, like the big thing about 5, they talked about how it lacked like a one-player content. It didn't really give you as much to do if you were like a casual player. And as much as I'd like to sit around and say, tournament, that the game's got to be viable for tournament, it's got to matter. It's like, at the end of the day, fighting games are a business, and it breaks my heart to say that because what comes next is just not 100% of what I would want to project, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
I do think that despite it being a business, there is a way to make a game that's fun for people to play that don't want to take it seriously and still be able to quote, and I use this heavy, but do some cool stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
That's like a big thing. Like Soul Calibur, I think, does a really good job of that. Like, despite the game being deep and you can do multiple things and there's subsystems that you can be an expert player and use, if you don't know how to do any of that stuff, it's okay because you can still do some cool stuff.
Yeah.
And with Street Fighter 6, you can tell that they've created a way to where the game presents itself to looking awesome, even if you don't know what you're doing. But at the same time, they've got all of these mechanics built in that you can use how you see fit with whatever character you choose to use and play your own way. That is the thing that separates like a player that's like good from a player that's great, is that expression and being able to like use the engine to fit your style instead of you playing to the engine. The engine can play to you, and that's huge. You're gonna see Justin playing the way Justin can play, and when you watch him play a character that somebody else is also using, you're not going to look at that character and go, I have no idea who's playing that character. I need to go look at the titles to see who's playing. You're going to be able to look and be like, yo, that's Justin Wong, and like if you see like Alex Valle playing Ryu and you see Daigo playing Ryu and then you see me play Ryu, you're not going to assume that I'm Daigo because I'm doing the same poke that he's doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're going to be able to see him, like you'll see him do a whiff punish and you'll be like, holy crap, that's Daigo. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing that we've been missing for a while.
Yeah.
We had it in 4.
Yeah.
Like I mean,
we did.
You watch Daigo play Ryu or Evil Ryu in 4, immediately. You go to Third Strike.
Like,
Justin's Chun-Li does not look like every other Chun-Li.
Justin's Rufus. Justin and Ricky look pretty close, like when they're both on the offensive. But if you're watching on defense, you can tell which one is Justin and which one's Ricky. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like it was just I love that, and like I come from the Marvel school. I talk about Marvel all the time. Marvel 3, best game ever. Even if you don't agree with it, fight me. It is what it is. But one of the things I can say about Marvel 3 is like every person that played that game had a way of expressing themselves, and I think that is part of the reason why the game became so fun for people to watch, even if they didn't play it.
Yeah. Well,
so
I've always said it was the best spectator game of all time, and Tekken 7 has came close.
Dude.
But it's those 2 games.
For sure. Like top tier Tekken, it's very intense. Like you see like a Korean player versus like a Jack player, and they're dashing up in each other's faces and nobody wants to jab because no one wants to die. Like that's huge, and like when somebody does a combo and like the crowd's like chanting with the combo. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
Where
yes.
like every hit they're like, hey, like all of that energy. Like when you talk about like the halls of hype and that stuff, I think the FGC has been missing that for a while, and I think some of these newer titles are starting to inject that back into the games. So with that being said, and we talking about coming out of like the COVID time and then like more titles, more investment, the games are going to have the support that they need. We have community organization that's being set up in a way that allows people to really be able to attend these events and not just go, but experience them. I think we have a good shot at doing something really special. It's just all in like what we want to do with the work,
Yeah, absolutely, man. And what we talked about with the Smash stuff, especially like bringing in that championship series, we're going to be doing that for Tekken as well as a tournament PR ranking. That could be something that's on the horizon as well. So I think that's something that's going to, like you said, give everybody a goal while not over pressuring everybody to be super competitive. But it just I've always looked at it as the same way as like a local music scene. If you have a local music scene that's popping off, and you've got, whether it's a hip hop scene, a metal scene, a punk scene, and you've got local bands who are just popping off, and they're throwing local shows to 300-400 people sometimes. If you go to a bourbon tournament and there's 150 people who's going to be playing Street Fighter 6 when it comes out at a Kentucky tournament, a random state in the Midwest who's traditionally not been that powerful as far as the rankings go.
Hell yeah,
but
dude.
We're going to be stacked, because this new game has got everybody hype. We had huge numbers for Strive at the last Bourbon tournament. We got One Night Stand coming up this weekend. There's going to be a big Strive turnout there as well. So, and Tekken is, like you mentioned, it's always been that game. It's been that perennial game. Xisin mentioned it earlier as well. Tekken has been that game that a lot of people have rallied around, and unfortunately doesn't have a lot of crossover. But Street Fighter 6 could definitely have that, because anime players play Street Fighter 6.
Yeah, man. I think Street Fighter 6 could potentially be, first of all, it's probably going to be the game that people have been asking Capcom to make since 4.
Yeah.
And they've taken everything from every world that they've had success and tried to put it in the same space at the same time, which I think is good. But with that being said, I definitely remember throwing events in Louisville, and we started out really small, and you work your way up. And it's I think a lot of people were like, we got to throw an event. But if you throw an event every week, if you have an event every single week, and I'm saying this from Louisville experience, I don't know if it's different where you guys are, but here, if you throw an event every single week and it's the same day every single week, the players look at the situation as, it's not a big deal if I miss it, I'll go to the next one. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. You start to get that, and that's kind of been the attitude for the last few years, really.
Yeah, it's a real big drawback, because if you look at you base it on simple math. If I show up to an event and there's 20 people at the event, right? And I'm like, hey, it's not huge, but for where we're at, this is actually pretty sick. So I'm going to come next time. And that's great, right? But then, let's say somebody plays really, really well and they're just kind of dusting over everybody. It actually kind of causes a situation where people get lack of motivation and they don't want to play. So the next tournament that happens, those 20 people have dwindled to 10. And then you're looking at those 10 people, and it's the one guy that won last time, he's there again, and he's ready to dominate just the same. And then he goes through and he cleans up again. And you've got 4 dudes that are looking at that one guy out of the 10, and they're like, we're gonna get him. We got to find a way to get him. But the other 5, they back off. So now you're left with one guy who's won twice, 4 dudes that are interested in beating him, and everyone else is gone. And then the tournament time rolls around, and one of those other 4 of the 5 people that aren't the good guy are like, I'll go next week. And then it's 4 people that show up. And then the other guys are like, man, nobody came. Man, I'll go next week.
It kind of comes down to cracking that code to what the community wants. And if for Smash, we have that problem in Smash where especially towards the end games, the end life cycle of Smash, where we'll dwindle down to 4 to 5 players sometimes. Even in Louisville, we've hosted those. So but right now in Ultimate, we just did the power ranking cycle, and we had 2 players that showed up to 2.2 tournaments a week. I know 0.2 tournaments a week, but that was what the average came out to be. So if we can Smashers literally eat, live, and breathe that shit. They will go to 3 tournaments a week if you give them the option to go to 3 tournaments a week, and some players do.
Eric Riddle.
As far as attendance, man, people can say what they want. Smash people show up and they show out, and that's important. One of the things I was going to get to when I was talking about the whole player count dwindling. If you throw an event, if you don't throw it every week and you throw it bi-weekly or even as a monthly, people don't get that itch where they're like, I'll just go next time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's what's the incentive to keep coming? And so one of the reasons why the Smash scene really did pop off was the power ranking. It gave incentive for people to keep coming. The competitive ones, you actually have that one, people will back off, right? Mm-hmm. But there's definitely incentives for, especially we just had the Arcadian. Now Arcadians, they require a bigger scene, but Arcadians are sick because it does give incentives for people to keep improving and to actually see how they work in a non-power ranked tournament, and that's pretty good too. And like I said, I just kind of that's one of the goals I think the FGC community in general should have, is trying to crack that code of what incentivizes a Tekken player, what incentivizes a Street Fighter player, what
Yep.
incentivizes a Mortal Kombat player, and then kind of like tackle it, as you said, it's like a business, and what's the marketing behind it, and Jeremy Tyler busted that shit wide open with marketing.
Shout out to Jeremy Tyler, the GOAT.
Yeah.
I see you over there, BSG.
And we're co-workers, and sure enough we work in marketing. That's what we do. That's our job. We market. And
Wow.
it's we got to figure out what fighting game players keep coming back to, why they keep coming back, and then like incentivize that. If it's not state rankings, it's not state rankings. But there has to be something that fuel a passion for someone to sit in front of a television screen sometimes 20, 30 hours a week while they're learning the game, getting those combos down, getting those things down the muscle memory. It takes practice, so they practice for a reason, right?
It also takes losing. And
Yes.
we know as competitive gamers, we know losing isn't fun. Losing sucks.
Yeah.
No one wants to lose. It's horrible. You'd be like, man, I'm never gonna beat this guy. This is ridiculous. But like, there's got to be something in the mix that kind of keeps you flowing, even when you're not at the top of the rank. You know, like when you're not like doing well. And one of the things I talked about, I think I was talking to Jimmy West about this from Hideaway. I think it plays into like the concept of having a community. I think a lot of people get the idea kind of flip-flopped, where it's like the tournaments are what drives the scene, when in reality it's the community that drives the scene. So like without a community, you don't have tournaments, because like people don't want to test their mettle. A lot of the people that want to test their mettle comes from like them wanting to beat people that they actually know. Because when you play a fighting game, you have the most fun when you play people that like you know personally. It just is what it is, because you're having a mental conversation with somebody that you know like front and back. And when they make a decision and you punish that decision, there's a part of you on the inside that's like, yeah, dude, get red. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, and that's huge. And like when the guy that usually beats you all week long, and then when it comes to the one time where you really put it down and you smoke them, it's not that you got to get up and talk trash. You actually just talked trash. You beat it. And you walk away from it, and the dude's like, that'll never happen again. I know, because I'm that guy. I'm the guy that's like, you'll never beat me again ever.
Enjoy your one.
You know, I'm like, you got your one, but next time I'm gonna show you something different. And I think like if you have a community of players that challenge each other in that way, and I think it also helps that the people that are in that community are typically gonna grow at a similar rate. And you know, there's nothing worse than playing people who are leagues and leagues and leagues above you when you don't have any way to practice to work up that middle ground. If you have a bunch of people that are around your area, around your skill set, and you're playing games actively with those people, I think it kind of like you level up together and you learn kind of like at the same speed. So it gets to a point where like if you've got a bunch of people that are at that level and everybody's kind of growing, and you bring somebody in who is really good, then it kind of forms this camaraderie where these other players that have been hanging out together have a target. And like I think that idea in itself is what makes it to where community grows to a point where tournaments are necessary, because everybody's got a point to prove at that point. And then on top of that, they're all friends, so they all want to be there because they're all going to be hanging out and playing games wherever they're supposed to be hanging out at anyway. It doesn't matter, you know? So I think Kentucky as a whole, I think, or at least in Louisville, I'll say this is Louisville because I can't address the other places. I don't live there. But in Louisville, I think the big thing that we have to work on here is developing a community-driven, you know, feel, so that when Hideaway throws their events, because I mean, hey, they're there and they've got the space, they've got the equipment, they've got everything we need. Once we have a community that'll show up to those events actively, the rest will take care of itself. At least that's what I think. You know, I'm not gonna say that I'm right. I'm not gonna say that I'm wrong. It is what it is. But like, that's kind of one avenue that I'm personally exploring, and I'm trying to set the culture within like the KFGC page to be more about the community aspect of things, and like keeping things in order for when tournaments get announced and when people are posting things, so that every individual post about an event, whether it's in Paducah or in Richmond or in Lexington or in, gosh, I can't even think, Bowling Green, wherever it is, you know, like I want to give them the floor so that they get the visual space that they need and the time to breathe at the top of that line, so that when people are coming in and looking for an event, they're not looking at 5, they're looking at this main one. And then when that one's gone, the next one takes the space of it. So there's a cycle, so that people, like, you know, you don't get bombarded like, oh, there's 20 events and I don't know which one to go to, because that causes it to where people don't go to whatever the biggest one is, and that's bad, you know?
Yeah. So what you're talking about is like kind of like developing a culture around the fighting game.
Exactly.
So so you remember Smashboards and SRK?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
my
all
God.
that.
Wasn't that
Hey,
those were amazing?
don't leave out the
tools.
Zaibatsu. You can't leave out the Zaibatsu.
Zaibatsu, 8-way run.
Mhm.
What was the one for Guilty Gear? Dust Loop?
Yeah, dust loops.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm a smasher at my very heart and soul, so that's where I started with smash boards. And we all had this, like, you know, the character boards, and then we had the community boards, and we had the region boards, and we had, like, sometimes the city boards, and of course we had tournament listings and all that nice
Right.
stuff. And that was a very great way to organize all that stuff and build the culture around the game. So when Smash Brawl started up, it's like, because Melee and Brawl, they're segmented. You had got like modern Smash, and you got Melee. And I'm not dogging Melee or anything, but you know, because Modern Smash was the carryover from Brawl to Smash 4 to Ultimate.
Right.
The same players kind of rode that boat all the way through.
We kind of got to experience that when 5 came out. Because
Yeah.
there really is a different, like Third Strike players mostly migrated to 4, but when 5 came out, there was a clear divide.
And there was a documentary that they made that really divided that crowd in two. If anyone's watched that Smash documentary on Melee.
Oh yes.
But what was going on during that scene? We had a Cincinnati scene developing in basements, and it literally was basements. I went to the basements tournaments myself. And you had the Louisville scene developing in these little comic shops / apartments, like you were talking about with the fighting game. We had college campuses growing Moorhead scenes, and we had the Lexington scene develop out of UK. So that's like the main segments of Smash. Eventually, through Smash boards, you start communicating, start holding tournaments, start advertising, and these groups start meeting up and clashing with each other. And we all kind of grow and make friends with that, build rivalries between groups. We actually have crew battles. We had a crew battle between Kentucky and Ohio, kind of like come up from that. So it's like just building these tiny little communities, like you said, and incentivizing them to travel to a tournament. And then having them clash up and meet together, and like, you know, you're traveling as a team, you're traveling as your boys. You pack them up in a car, and then you rush them to the hotel, and you pack 10 guys in one room, and it's like, but that's that's the kind of culture that we kind of grew up in, and that's kind of like what you. There's probably another way to do it, but that's the spark that Smash did it with.
Yeah.
And
I think you're right. I think you're 100% right, because when your boys are playing, especially if you travel with them, when your boys are playing, you're screaming and yelling and acting up. You're like, man, you better get him. You better beat him. And like when you win, we all win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's huge. And I think that
getting that magic pixel
major
moment.
Yeah, if you look at any major, like anywhere, if anybody wins a tight match, like it's super close, and somebody wins, man, like there's a rush of people that go and they're like hugging the person that won, or you know, everybody's cheering. People, like, I mean, people do it in the country, like we wave flags and stuff when people play. When you know, it's 100% that, and that's the part of, I think, the Kentucky scene that we really have to build on, is the community, because I think once the communities are set, like it'll be easy. Because I mean, Matt and I used to go to Lexington and play Dragon Ball against the Lexington boys, and it was just the two of us. But there was a lot more of them than there were us. And we'd go there and we'd work real hard. And sometimes we'd get them, and sometimes Splash would get us, or sometimes Earl would get us, you know? And I'm like, yo, we got something for you next time. Like, I remember, I've been talking about this, and I'm not calling anybody out, but it's still funny. There was
Call
a time
them out.
where there was a time where we were playing Dragon Ball on a final set. This was in Lexington. I'm sitting in Grands, like, waiting. And Matt and Jacob, I forget what he goes by. Your pal Jake, I think is what his name is.
Yeah, it's your pal Jake.
Yeah, your pal Jake. So they're playing in what's gonna be losers finals. And Matt's my training partner. So of course I'm like, Matt, you whoop him, dude. Like get done with this. Let's get this money, you know. And Matt's playing him or whatever. And there was one point where Matt like won the game, and Jacob, who was like pretty frustrated, grabbed his this Monster energy drink off the table. And I don't know why this stuck with me, but it stuck with me like mad hard. He grabbed this Monster energy drink, and like when I say he slammed it, he drank this like real fast. And then he grabbed the can and he squeezed the can to like nothing and slammed it on the table. And they were like, I think Matt was up like 2-1 his first to 3. So he slammed the drink on the table, and then he hit rematch. And like as a joke, I look at Matt and I go, this isn't gonna go well. And Matt's like, whatever. He's like, there ain't enough of anything in that can. And then they played, and Matt walked him again. And I'm like, and he left, and then Matt and I played finals, and we just kind of had a big laugh and joke about it the whole way home. But then we go back and start thinking like, yo, we had to work for that, because Jacob used to beat us pretty bad, like going into it, And so like we would travel and look forward to that match, win or lose. It was like, hey, we got to beat him today. And you remember Jordy?
Jordy goes into Smash as well.
Yeah, dude. Like, I'm just saying, like, the community aspect was there, and that was for a game that I didn't even main. I was busy playing Marvel, But like, I just decided, hey, this game is popular. People are playing this, and like, if you know anything about me as a player, if you play a game and you're willing to show me a couple of tricks, I'm playing it. I've entered a Smash tournament before. I had no idea what I was doing. But shout outs to Duck Hunt Dog, who has an assist, which feels very normal for me. So I did the best I could. I think I got third, which was pretty wild because that happened in Lexington.
Nice.
So yeah, but you know, it's like, I'll play anything. And I think there are tons of people out there that are willing to play other things as long as their friends are out there playing it with them. And that's how we raise the attendance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was certain places in the country I hated playing, and one of them was like Springfield, Ohio. And the reason why I hated playing in Springfield, Ohio, is we'd load up a car, we'd go into tournaments, we start doing well, and we'd be in the top 8 of the bracket, and then suddenly you get like 15 Springfield boys just behind you, shouting about how every move you make sucks, and how screaming out every mistake you do, and how awesome the other guy is playing it because you're playing against one of the Springfield boys.
Right.
And it's just like, it is just the hardest shit to play through. It's like, it's
like they have an assist button, you know.
But you
like,
never forget that shit. That's what's so great about it.
It's awesome. Like, I think the FGC, like, man, it's such a grassroots thing, you know. Like, it's all rooted in like camaraderie and family, and then like when you're playing and you're on the sticks, and I'm gonna address that on the stream. This is the show called The Sticks.
Yeah,
y'all need to make sure y'all note that down. But when you're on the sticks, we're not friends. We're not family. We're trying to get wrecked.
Yeah.
Like, we're here to perform a job. Yeah. And then after the job is over, you know, we hug it out, we shake hands, we talk that trash, and we get right back in it, you know? Like, hey, that's what it's about.
Yeah, and that's how you build that community. And, man, I really feel like we're heading in the right direction as a state. And that's the reason I wanted to start this show up and start helping promote what is going on, not just the big tournaments, but the little stuff. You know, if somebody's it's like, hey, man, I'm hosting at my house this weekend, man. Wife's out of town. We're hosting Saturday. We're cooking out and we're playing Tekken or we're playing Strive, whatever. We'll talk about it on here, man. We'll be like, hey, man, if you're in the Louisville area and you know Staticalpha, he's going to be hosting some stuff at his house. You know, get up with the dude.
It. You know, like once we can kind of get on the same page, like when somebody's like, yo, we got to meet up an hour away, people are going to get in the car and go, you know, because especially if their friends are going, it's easy, you know?
I think so too, man. So, guys.
Gas is $5. You need your friends.
It's not going down fast enough. It's not. But, guys, it's been awesome sitting around talking to you guys. It's a pretty good first show. We were down a co-host, Razor. His internet completely dropped out on him. We didn't get him. But we will once again give a quick shout-out to his tournament coming up this weekend, One Night Stand in Corbin, Kentucky. Over 160 in attendance going to be there, including some of the top players in the country for Smash. Also going to be Strive, and, of course, we got the King of Fighters 15. We are technically part of the SNK Tour, but we'll see how many people actually stick it out. And Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is always there. So if you feel like making the drive all the way down to Corbin, my dude, feel free.
Did you say Marvel?
We have added Marvel back to the lineup.
Don't you play with me?
It's also going to be at every bourbon as well.
If I get in this car and go to Corbin, there better be Marvel.
There will be Marvel.
About it.
There will be Marvel.
Be Marvel.
even if it's just a top 8, we're going to have Marvel.
I'm with it.
All right.
I'm with it.
So, guys, don't forget One Night Stand this weekend and Bourbon State coming up later in the year as well. It's been great talking to you guys. Staticalpha, check him out. Check out the Kentucky Fighting Game Collective. Join the group. It's a great community. Get in there. Just get to know some fighting game players, man. You know, reach out to people. If you don't know somebody, reach out. Say, hey, man, what's your Steam name? You know, what's your PS4 name? Get on there and get in some matchups. Even if you don't feel comfortable going out to somebody's house, play them online.
I'm also going to add this too for KFGC. If you ever have any questions or just want to talk about meta or concepts or ways to practice or ways to maybe even meet people in the Louisville area, if you're stopping through because you have a job or something you got to do or whatever, feel free to hit me up or any of the admins. They're all on the same page with me. We talk a lot. So just feel free, reach out to us. We're available. My DMs are always open if you ever have any questions.
Awesome. So Galahad, of course, with the Moorhead FGC, they're kicking things back up. College towns are really going to be a big part of it. EKU's got their scene coming back up, and then, of course, Louisville on the Smash and FGC side. The Hideaway gang is definitely going to be bringing it hard coming up in August as well.
Jimmy.
Jimmy's in chat right now, so he'll definitely hear you.
Big up, Jimmy.
So there's the Hideaway schedule once again. So, guys, thanks for coming in, and thanks everybody for coming in and checking out the first episode of The Sticks. It's been great. We'll be back next Tuesday. We'll try to see who's going to be on the show. We might even bring Static back sometimes. I'm sure he's happy to talk about fighting games anytime.
You let me know.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week right here on Drop0ut FGC.